Okay, and live. So I really hope that anybody listening can hear me. I did thoroughly test the mic and the new setup before coming on. At least I think I would consider it thoroughly tested, right? I'm pretty sure that there is a bit of an echo. I don't know if you guys are hearing that. We've yet to do any soundproofing in the new offices just yet, but hopefully it's not too annoying. So, hello, welcome. My name is Kiera Lexi. I am a writer living and working in the Caribbean in Trinidad and Tobago. And this channel is my accountability stream where you, my friends and my family, get to hold me accountable for finishing the manuscript. So, for this week's update, as you may already know, I haven't done anything in terms of like streaming and my accountability stuff for the last 2 weeks. And yes, Nikki, welcome, straight up at 3. On time today, as opposed to, not at 3. I don't know. Hi, Tashari, welcome. I hate that I'm the kind of person who eats all their popcorn before the movie starts. Congrats on your new place. Hi, David. Thank you very much. We do like the new place. So, full disclosure, this thing back here, super depressing color, this kind of weird oatmeal shade. Hi, Mom. My mom is here. Welcome, folks. This is all still kind of in progress, right? We've been here and we moved in on the 1st. It's been almost 2 weeks exactly, and things are still just kind of a mess. I think Brendan's office might be mostly set up. Mine is kind of in limbo. As I may have mentioned a few minutes ago, we haven't done any soundproofing yet, so there may be a little bit of an echo. At least it sounds like that to me, but I'm in the room. Maybe the mic is doing magic and canceling the echo. Who knows? But it's a new mic. It's a new mic. Like I don't have to wear my headset. So we got new toys and stuff so that we could set up kind of proper workspaces for things like this, because Brendan does stream regularly as well. He streams on Twitch and he does video games. I just do this. I guess I could start streaming video games. I've been playing Hades. I wouldn't say a lot recently. I only just got it just before we moved. He being Brendan, bought it for me for my birthday / Christmas-ish, because this was my birthday present, this t-shirt and a couple other goodies from this video game, Greece. I think it's pronounced Greece is how the developers said it's pronounced on their Ask Me Anything on Reddit. But back to what I'm actually supposed to be talking about. Hey, audio sounds good, no echo. Lovely. Glad to hear it. Not getting any echo. Yes. Okay, cool. So we are here. For those of you who are in Trinidad, we are no longer on the east side.
But first, you'll have to unlock your device.
Google thinks I'm talking to it. It happens every time I say the words, okay, cool. I think Google has yet to really understand my accent. Anyway, we're no longer on the east side of the lighthouse. We are now on the west side of the lighthouse, which is kind of where I grew up. Like I grew up not in this area where we're living now, but I grew up on the west side of the lighthouse. And then I lived like a few years of my adult life on the other side. Not that makes a difference to anything or anyone, but I don't know, fun facts, some shit. Anyway, so here we are. Things are still being set up. Things are still kind of a mess. We're still unpacking. There's no soundproofing. That really depressing closet behind me is still pretty depressing looking. Nikki says, Google just knows that he's cool. And Tashari agrees. Okay, I'll take your word for it. It happens like in the middle of my classes all the time. But yeah, that is super depressing. I just started doing something with it to make it slightly less depressing recently. And I don't know, for those of you who play Dungeons and Dragons, there's something called the Adventurers Tarot, which is something that we backed. Brennan and I backed early this year. Google is cool, honey. It's Google. Brendan is late. It's Google. And yes, Nikki, the lighthouse is a demarcation. You'll have to Google it because Google is cool. Yes. But the lighthouse it's kind of dumb because the lighthouse is in Trinidad and Tobago, like in Port of Spain. And it's really, I always thought it was kind of weird that people were like, anything past the lighthouse is east, because it's not really. But people say that. So whatever. Tashari says she's supplying artwork, so she needs themes. Does that, like, to us? Like, you're giving us artwork? I'm not going to say no to that. Video games are a great theme. Dungeons and Dragons is also a great theme. Like I mentioned, I've been playing Hades. I think I kind of want to get some like Hades art prints to put somewhere, but yeah. So maybe not. Yes. So we back to the Adventures Tarot way back before like the world went to shit in like December or January. And we got these a couple months ago and I just thought I'd start putting them up. So behind me directly, which is, I don't know if you can see it, this one is like the first 20 cards in the deck. So it's the Bard, the Ranger, the Monk. What is that one? The Fighter, and so on and so on. So I stuck them on some frame, like the hard backing that you put in like picture frames. And I put it on there. My mom, who is, I think, watching, she suggested I put my comics up, which I definitely intend to do if she will bring them over to me from storage. Yep. Oh, so my chair is dark. If I put too much dark behind me, it will all blend. That's true, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be mostly colorful like these things are. Most of my like comic book covers and stuff, they aren't very dark. They've got a lot of colors. So I'm not too worried about that. And even if my chair blends into the background, whatever. At least it's not going to be like this depressing oatmeal color, which is the only thing I'm trying to avoid. It does have a lot of natural light. I put the ring light on in case it gets dark, but there's like, these windows are really nice and big. There's a loft. Ugh. I don't know if you guys can see the string I'm pulling, but that's the staircase to a loft. I would adjust the camera, but it's probably going to be a pain in the ass to fix if I do. So I'll just leave it. But the loft is really cool. I'm going to turn the loft into a book nook, put some shelves in there. We've got a whole ton of books. When I was much, much younger, and we had like a upstairs, downstairs house where the downstairs had, for lack of a better word, it had been gutted, and there was nothing downstairs but shelves and books. And my friends used to call it the catacombs. I am looking forward to taking all the books that were in the catacombs and subsequently were boxed and just like stuck in a corner. They're all going to find new places now. Like, I can't wait to unpack all of my books. We actually finally, for the first time in years, I've got space to display my comics and my books and actually put them on real shelves instead of boxes or suitcases. And I'm really excited for all of that. Nikki says, you need to pop. And if you wear dark clothes, have dark hair, a dark chair, you won't be popping. Trust me, I have a BFA. Do you have a BFA? I didn't know that. I thought you were like, I don't know, like an LLB? A law? Don't you have a law degree? I'm so confused. I guess you could have gone on to do law after. I gotta learn more about this BFA. Either that or you're totally fucking with me. So, what? True Renaissance woman. The freak is in. The freak is in. And Brendan says, I think we're back to having too many books for our bookshelves, surprisingly. I think this is absolutely true. But we'll figure it out. We'll build some shelves. It'll be fine. Back here, and I don't really want to open it because I don't want the cats to get in. But I'm starting to put my books and stuff in here, so it's starting to look kind of cool now. All of this at the bottom here is still total trash, but it's going to eventually have all of my books and things. Well, not all of my books can't fit there, but I'll also put books on the shelves on this side and the shelves up in the loft. Anyway, I'm very, very excited about this new place, obviously, because I've been freaking rambling about it for 10 minutes. Yikes. Nikki does have a BFE. What? True Renaissance woman. I believe it. I believe it. David is an INTJ. Hi, David. Nice to meet you. I'm ENTJ. So very similar. Nikki says, open that door for the backdrop, much better. Yeah, like there are 2 cats on the desk right now. So I felt like opening that was not a good idea. But I agree. Brendan also thinks that it's a good backdrop. It gives me an indie vibe. Okay. I do think it would be a really good backdrop. And I do think it would be really nice. I'm very concerned. There's glass in here. Olia, there's glass. Like this is not a joke. Okay. All of these are shot glasses. And you see this sucker, right, with the big black tail here, that's dark chocolate. He will mess that stuff up. Okay. This is all glass. This is not okay for cats. So I will definitely have to like clear the cats out of the room. Hi, Bubs. I know. I love you too. Oh. So I'll definitely have to clear the cats out before any videoing, if that's what I'm going to do. My mom says, too many books, 4 shelves has always been our state of being, and why would that change? Yeah, she's right though. Even when we had the catacombs, there was still just books in piles and books everywhere and books. We've always had too many books. And I'm really okay with that. I would rather have the space that we have now and fill it all with books and still have books and to find places for than for all of my books to just be in boxes, just stuck in a corner somewhere, gathering mold and dust. So I'm really happy with this new place. It's big. It's got all the things. Wait, he's not complaining. He was looking for pets. All right, it's fine. He's talking about how DC wasn't complaining. Normally he grumbles like an old man. But not today, it seems. What is too many books? There are too little shelves. Change perspective. I agree, the freak is in. Change perspective. There should never be such a thing as too many books. Only too few shelves. I'm with you on that. Unless you guys have more questions about the new place, which you can definitely feel free to ask. I don't mind. I really love the new space we're in. Then I'm going to move on to actual manuscript stuff, which is what this whole channel is supposed to be about, right? It's not me gushing about, oh my God, we moved in and love this place. It's like, even though I did do that, right? David says, monkey know which tree to climb. Kittens know which parent to disrupt. Am I surprised that Nikki is an ENTJ? I am not surprised. You and I are very similar and have always been since we met. And since I'm also usually an ENTJ, sometimes I get ENFP, but like I think it was really, really influenced by the state and the status of my anxiety and depression at the time. But when I am my most normal and I feel like I am myself, I am an ENTJ. And I'm not surprised by that at all, Nikki, at all. The freaking is in wants to know if I miss being close to her. And the answer is yes. I do miss being close to you. I miss knowing that I can just come over at any time or you guys can come visit. I miss knowing that I could ask you what you cook and come over and get free food because we still haven't cooked yet. We've been living off takeout because we've just been tired. We've been working, and when we haven't been working, we've been unpacking. And when we haven't been working and unpacking, we're just trying to kind of zone out, and we just haven't had the spoons to really use our kitchen yet. So, yes. Tashari says, are these kinks? I'm confused. No. ENTJ, ENFP, and did David say he was? INTJ. These are from the Myers-Briggs test. So I and E are introverted and extroverted. N Somebody's going to have to remind me what N is. T is thinking. F is feeling. J is judgmental, a judgment. P is shit, I don't remember. But look it up. The Myers-Briggs personality test is what all these letters are from, and it will probably explain everything. Nikki says that she gets ENFP when she gets self-conscious and tried to skew the results to make me look more reasonable. Maybe that's what happens to me too. Shoot. The Freakazoon says I can still come visit, and if she wants me to cook as a hot, yes, please cook. Another friend of mine who lives in the area, probably my only friend who lives in the area, because the other people I know who still live on this side of the lighthouse are family members. So she said that she would either bring us a housewarming gift, and I was like, no gifts. We have too much stuff. Don't bring me anything. And she said she'd bake, and I was like, yes, bring food. We always need food. So I will totally be down for food as a housewarming gift. And David reminds me that S and N are sensors and intuitive. Right. Yes. The N is intuitive. That's right. Tishari says, I shall usually test what kind of appliance I am. She's a fridge. Shit, what appliance am I? I think I'm a toaster. No, I'm not a Cylon, so I can't be a toaster. Maybe I am a Cylon. No, I don't know. But you can do a free Myers-Briggs test online. You just have to find it. Just Google it. You'll be fine. Caleb wants to know where did we move to? We moved west of the lighthouse. And that's all I'm saying to the public because I don't want people to know where I live. Unless you are specifically invited here and I send your location. I don't want you to know where I live. And I feel like that's reasonable. Okay. But yes, we are now west of the lighthouse. Okay. I said like 7 minutes ago, I was going to stop talking about the move and the new place. And talk about the manuscript. So I'm going to transition into the manuscript talk. And I'm totally ignoring the Freakazoon and her ghetto bullshit. All right. Where am I? Yes, what is up with writing? Thank you, Nikki. What is up with writing? So I think it's pretty obvious that I've done very little writing in the last few weeks with the move and everything that's been happening. I did say in the last, at least I believe it was the last stream that I did, that I had been watching Jane the Virgin, and I realized, thanks to one particular episode, that the problem is always further back than you think. So I decided to take that lesson to heart, and instead of just pushing forward with my manuscript, I decided to use the feedback that I've gotten from my critique partners so far to edit Act 1. I expect to, all right, bye Shari, have fun cleaning. This like playing gospel to clean thing is something I only learned because of Brendan. I did not know that that was a thing. Thank you, Ryan. We are glad to be back at it also. Right. The manuscript. So I decided to take that to heart, and I decided I would edit Act 1, at least as much as I've written so far of Act 1. I'm pretty sure that the moment I've gotten to is the proper end of Act 1. Now, I started, and I've only done a very little bit of that editing work so far. But something that I've really come to recognize in that whole, the problem is further back than you think, is that in a situation like this, where it's a process of the protagonist making discoveries to figure out what's really going on, I was really, really focused and clear, I think, about what she would discover and what was really happening and like what the truth is. But I hadn't done a very good job of laying any false trails. And I'm really glad that I did choose to go back to the beginning to start this editing process from Act 1, because that gives me the opportunity to sprinkle some false trails into this, or at least the beginnings, so that in Act 2, when they really start to dig into the fun and games part of the book and they try to figure out what's going on, these kind of false trail red herring things really pop up and give us the opportunity for them to go off course. Now, at the end of the day, all of those things kind of, they need to eventually get tied together and they need to have a purpose. But I still kind of have to figure out what that purpose is, because I had a very clear, like I said, idea of what was happening beginning to end before. And now I'm not sure anymore. I think like the main things are still the main things, and those are still, I think, what's going to happen. The story that I have is still the story that I have. It's still the story that I'm going to tell, but it needs layers that I think I've not been able to achieve just yet. And I'm really glad that I'm going back now, because it gives me the opportunity to lay the foundation to create those layers over the course of Act 2, so that I can tie all of those things together in Act 3 for a really great ending. In theory, we've got to see what actually happens, but that's what I really hope to do. That does bring me to the crime that isn't the crime, because it's related to the idea of laying false trails. So and I think I've spoken about this before as well. So Brendan and I were talking about some of these same problems that I've been having in moving forward. And he gave me this idea about, it's the crime that isn't the crime is kind of a false trail in itself. So it's like, this is the thing that you think is wrong and the thing that you think is happening. But then you discover that that's not really the problem or the crime or the issue at all. And that's kind of where I'm at now. So I do have, in some way, one false trail, but that trail doesn't really go anywhere. It very quickly becomes resolved into the real conflict, or what I'm aiming to make the real conflict of this manuscript. And I really need to fix that, because I think my characters need to be a little more confused. I guess that's okay. I guess it's okay for me to want my characters to be a little more confused and have a little more shit to deal with. Okay. So that's my laying false trails and the crime that isn't the crime. If you guys have any questions about that or what that means, please do let me know in the comments and I will address those. But in the meantime, questions about choosing a debut is next on the list. Now, that might seem kind of like a dumb question or a dumb thing to talk about, because you don't really get to choose your debut unless you've decided to be a self-published author. So, and I apologize that I'm repeating this for folks who already know all about it. But basically, if you want to be traditionally published, you go through a process called querying, where you query agents. That's how you get an agent. And once you get an agent, that agent will represent you to publishing houses. And what determines your debut at that point is basically what's the first book that you sell to a traditional publishing house. So you might query a book to an agent, and that agent might take you on based on that book, but that book may not be the first book that sells. So if you go on submission, so going on submission is after you have an agent and that agent believes that your book is ready to submit to publishers, you would go on submission. And that's where, instead of you querying agents, the agent, for lack of a better term, queries publishing houses and editors. And they will read the agent's proposal for your manuscript, and they will then decide whether or not they want to take it somewhere. So if you query an agent and you get an agent, that's great. That agent is going to send your book to editors, but editors might still say no to your book. In which case, your agent is going to go, well, what else you got? And at that point, you'll give your agent another book. Or you'll write another book and you and your agent will work together on it. And then your agent will send that book out. And basically, you'll go through that process until, hello. This is Dark Chocolate. Hello, Bobs. DC is kind of an asshole. So Brendan often says things like, why isn't she complaining? But he's occasionally sweet. Like right now. Right now, he kind of just wants attention and pets. And probably to harass the other cats that are sleeping on the desk. But anyway, so what determines your debut is the first book that you will then sell to one of those publishers. And it may not be the book that gets you an agent. So that's your agent sounds like a 1960s mobster, according to David. I mean, sure. Maybe I just did a really bad impression of an agent. I don't know. I don't have one. I can't even say I've like met an agent before. I follow some agents on YouTube and on Twitter and stuff, but that's as close as I've come to like a real conversation with an agent. I do know quite a few editors who like they're professional editors and they've worked with like major companies and stuff. But anyway, so that's really how your debut is determined, unless you want to be a self-published author, in which case you get to decide what is the first book that you publish. So this became a conversation because, again, as some of you know, I have multiple works in progress, right? It's the classic problem where you've got a gajillion ideas and you start all of them, but you never finish one. So the purpose of this channel is to make sure I finish Project Obia, which I'm doing, and I've been committed to that. But even once I finish Project Obia, I've been thinking about another work in progress that I have actually completely outlined, which is called Dungeons and Desi Girls. And Dungeons and Desi Girls is actually a romance. It's a contemporary romance set in Trinidad and Tobago. And it's not the kind of thing that I normally write, but I decided to try it because as a writer, I need to start writing things that are outside of my comfort zone because that's the only way I'm going to get better, right? So I decided to try this romance thing. And I came up with an outline and a concept and everything and a title. Obviously, I really like the title. Dungeons and Desi Girls is catchy. I like it. But he adores care. Facts. I'm going to assume that's about the cat. So I've been trying to figure out, once Project Obia is finished and it's in the process of becoming edited and published and polished, I will be working on Dungeons and Desi Girls next. And even though this is me thinking way, way ahead about shit that I don't even need to think about just yet, I think that it does beg the question, if I query agents with Project Obia and I don't find an agent, should I query agents with Dungeons and Desi Girls when that book is ready for, other eyes, for those kinds of eyes? And I genuinely don't know the answer. And I know that I have a lot of time to figure the answer out, but I don't know the answer because, well, okay, let me rephrase that. I am leaning towards no as my answer. Because yes, I want an agent, and maybe I can get one with that book if I don't get one with Project Obia. But is that the book that I want to potentially, and that's the thing, when you send a manuscript to an agent, it's likely you're sending that because you feel like you're okay with that book being your debut, right? That's the book, if that's the book that they're trying to sell to publishers, that's the book that is going to, hi, David, a visit is never late. You're right, you're not late. You're just in time for me to talk about whether or not I want to self-publish one of these things that I'm writing. And that's what it comes down to with Dungeons. Exactly. So The Freak is In really hit the nail here. And because that's what I was getting at, is that romance is not what I write. Is that the brand? Is that the book I want to be known for? Because your debut usually sets the tone for the rest of your career. If romance is just a thing I'm experimenting with, is that the thing I want to turn into my brand? Is that the book I want to be known for, right? Is that the book that I want everybody else comparing my other work to? When it's romance, it's not my genre, right? Now, on the flip side of that, I can self-publish. And whether that self-publish is Project Obia or that self-publish is Dungeons and Daisy Girls, it's the same kind of question. Do you want to be associated, your first book, your debut novel, in a genre that you don't think you're going to write or continue to write in? Because I definitely don't think I'm going to continue to write in a romance. Now, who knows? In 6 months, maybe this is something I do, and maybe I decide to query D&D, Dungeons and Daisy Girls. Maybe I decide to query it, or maybe I decide to Kickstarter, like self-publish it, and maybe that's what I do. And I end up deciding that romance is my thing, and that's what I suddenly start writing, whether it's like science fiction romance or fantasy romance or whatever. And maybe that happens. But for my whole life so far, romance has not been my genre. It's always been sci-fi and fantasy. So it's a really weird place for me to suddenly have my brain. And again, I know I'm totally jumping the gun. I know this is not a decision I need to make tomorrow or even next month, but it's something that I think I need to leave in my head and allow to percolate, because I'm eventually going to have to answer that question. And if you are a writer and you're watching this, that's a question that you should be asking yourself as well. When you send a book to an agent or when you decide to self-publish, do you want to be known for this work? Do you want to be known for this work as your debut? Do you want this to be the first thing that people know your name for? And I think those are really important questions to ask yourself as a writer, because it's going to affect your brand and your career, right? No matter what we want or decide, the first book that gets out there is going to matter, especially if a lot of people read it. You know, maybe you have a debut and it kind of flops. It's a self-published and it doesn't go anywhere. You don't have a lot of sales. Not a lot of people know about it or of it. You can probably recover from that and just do something great the next time around, right? Build your brand afterward, like pull it off the shelves, just kind of erase it and build a new brand and start anew, because not enough people really got into it. So, but I can't imagine if you have a debut and it sells and people know about it, or if that's with a traditional publisher, because you as the writer can't tell a traditional publisher, well, hey, I'm not satisfied with this work anymore. Can you just pull it from shelves? You can probably do that. Maybe like you can ask for it to be pulled, but like you're going to have really good reasons for it. And I don't like it anymore. That's not a good reason, especially if the book is selling well, because then your publisher is going to be like, no, we're making money. And so are you. Leave it on the shelf. So like, it's kind of a mess. Nikki says, and this, dear people, is why authors use pseudonyms. And you are completely correct, right? But a pseudonym isn't any different to a brand. And if I want to become successful, then whatever pseudonym I use will have to continue publishing in that genre and will publishing that kind of book. So if I use a pseudonym and I publish Dungeons and Daisy Girls, people who read Dungeons and Daisy Girls are going to expect that there are more novels of that kind coming from that author. It doesn't matter that that author's name is not the name that I am known by, right? It's still going to matter. It's still going to be something that I have to contend with. And even though it's not necessarily not care for romance and care for dystopian, Nikki says, yeah, sure. I mean, I can do that, but it still comes back to the idea that I'm going to have to continue publishing in romance, right? Even if I use a different name. So yeah, I definitely, there are writers who write different genres under different names. I think Nora Roberts is one of those. James Patterson is one of those. Stephen King is also one of those. I think he has different pseudonyms. There are a lot of writers who do that. And it's not a big deal. It's just that I don't know if I want to publish anything in a genre that I don't intend to go back to. So David mentioned that it's a scary situation. Imagine being associated with a genre you don't even like. Lewis Carroll hated being associated with Alice in Wonderland, and Alice in Wonderland is what immortalized him. And it's true. It's not just about being in a genre that you don't like, but what happens when you're immortalized by a work that you aren't proud of, right? You may not be proud of that work. So, and there are all sorts of things that come back they're going to come back to haunt you, right? So like when you submit this to an agent and you get an agent, and that agent subs to a publishing house, and that publishing house gets that book, you have to ask yourself, why did I even query an agent with this book if I wasn't proud of this work? Right? But it happens. It does happen. And I've definitely heard authors talk about that experience where sometimes they wish that the novel that was their debut wasn't their debut. So some have even talked about how the novel that would have been their debut didn't end up getting sold to a publisher, and they're glad because the novel that ended up being their debut was much better, and they were much more proud of that work and proud of having that work on shelves. Let's see. Stephen King got Rage pulled from shelves after. Yeah, but that's a really good reason. That's a really good reason to pull a book from a shelf, right? It's not, oh, I don't think I like this work anymore. It's, bitch, look at what just happened. This needs to get off shelves right now. This is a very different situation, right? I'm not sure what Nikki is asking why about. What is the why for? Also, Anne Rice, I don't know the context for that statement of the name Anne Rice. I mean, I know who it is, but James Patterson doesn't write his own books anymore. He's a factory. But yes, he could definitely buy the whole of Trinidad and Tobago. It's true. And I know that, but that's beside the point. The point is that, it's your brand and everybody knows that this is him, even when it's a different name, right? All of those authors who have different pen names for their different genres, people still know that that's the writer. And people still come back and ask the writer, are you going to keep writing in X genre? Or are you going to keep adding books in Y series? And are you going to keep doing X in A thing or Y thing or B thing? And that's kind of where all of this anxiety comes in for me when I look into the future. Why do you have to write more than one book under an alias? You don't have to write more than one book under an alias, but if you write a book that does well under a specific alias, people are going to want more from you. And if people don't know who you are, the actual author, and your other books, then you lose sales. And I guess your publisher also loses sales. If you're self-published, same thing. But on the flip side of that, oh shit, what was I saying? Why do I need to write? Right. And also, if people love the book and they don't want to read outside of the genre, so the other books that you write under different pen names, then it's another kind of like disappointment thing. Particularly, and I think maybe I feel like this particularly because the genre I'm talking about is romance, but people apparently eat through romance novels like it's cricks. Okay, like people just like romance novels, they'll read them, one person will pick up a series and then they'll read everything in that series in just a couple of days or weeks, and then they'll read everything else by that author as long as it's in the romance genre. Like the turnover in the romance genre is huge. So I think that perhaps that's why I have this really specific mindset about writing more than one book if I decide to write something in the romance genre or publish something in the romance genre, because that's kind of how romance readers read. And I'm sure it'll be fine if I don't, but it's also kind of like, why bother if I'm just going to write the one book? What do folks get out of that after the one book? It just seems like a lot of effort for a brand that I'm not investing in, if that makes sense. Anne Rice writes using different names for different genres. Yes, and a lot of writers do that, right? You don't usually need a new name per genre, but it helps with branding. And yes, exactly. But that's exactly what I'm getting at. Either way, though, no matter how you cut it, no matter how you look at it, no matter how you twist it or turn it, your genre and the name you use in that genre is going to be a brand that you have invested in, right? If you're writing in it, you're investing in it. And your brand as an author, as a writer, is going to stretch across all of these books. So sure, you have, or like maybe brand is the wrong word in that case. It's like if you are, I don't know, if you're at the factory and you produce all of these different brands, the point is they all come back to one manufacturer. And that manufacturer is going to have a brand as well as represent or produce all of these other specific things, right? And this is a really bad analogy, but it's what I got, okay? It's what I have right now. So hopefully it works. The Freak is In says, I read Jim Butcher the way people read romance. And Anjali says, doesn't everyone? Yeah. I mean, I read urban fantasy like that. But the thing is that for a lot of folks, they read paranormal romance, which is like urban fantasy, but with romance instead of other stuff. The Freak is In says it's called research. Anyway, but that's kind of what I'm looking at in terms of my future right now is what genres do I want to invest in, and what brands do I want to invest in as I move forward with this endeavor. And yeah, I know that I'm, again, really way ahead of, I don't know who's lying to themselves right now. Anjali says, stop lying to yourself. I don't know if she's talking to the Freakism or if she's talking to me and what she's referring to that I said. She'll tell me though. Anywho, so yeah. It's far in the future, but it's something that's on my mind now because I'm eventually going to have to make this decision, and I don't want to stop in the middle of what I'm doing and put like my all of my career decisions on hold because I haven't given it any thought yet. But at some point in the future, I'm definitely going to have to consider what genres I'm investing in and therefore what brand I'm investing in, because even a pen name is a brand that I have to put my time and my energy into. And even if it's just a one-off book, that is another question. Like, because I would feel personally, I'd ask myself, like, why am I investing myself in this brand new pen name in this genre and everything, and I'm only just going to do the one book and then leave it alone, right? Why not just like, I don't know, make it a free novella or something for folks to read just because I could do that. If it's going to build my brand in other ways, right? The other brands, not the romance genre ones. And there's, I don't know, there's a lot. I'm going to have to talk to somebody, I think, who really specializes in this kind of thing and who can give me real advice on that. But that's kind of what it comes down to for me, is that I don't want to invest in a brand that I don't think I'm going to be staying committed to. Whatever name I ultimately use for Project Obia and similar works or other works in science fiction and fantasy, I know that I'm going to stay in science fiction and fantasy. I know that I want to keep writing in that genre. I know that I want to keep doing that work. So it's easy for me to invest in that and say whatever pen name or whatever I decide to do, that's what it is. It's not so easy for me to say that about something like romance or another genre that I'm not used to writing. Because at the end of the day, I need to give that just as much attention as I give the books in science fiction and fantasy. So it's about, I guess, my energy investment. And maybe it's not like that in real life. Like maybe I'm just making all of this up and it's not real. But that's how I feel, because at the beginning of every day, I only have so many spell slots or so many spoons. And I need to figure out how to use those spoons or use those spell slots, right? If I'm going to use a level 5 spell slot to cast a level 2 spell, cool. But then I can't cast a level 5 with that later on. And I can't use a level 2 to cast a level 5. So I really need to figure out how my energies are going to be distributed and how my commitments are going to work. And that's kind of where I'm at with it, right? And I have considered. So one of the writers that I've met recently in the G Squad server, they have a self-published series that I really, really like. And they did say that they got good feedback on it from agents or from like other folks, and they considered querying and moving forward, but ultimately they decided that they could afford to self-publish, so they're doing it that way instead. And they're great books. Oh my gosh, they're such good books. I've bought every single one now. The third volume just came out. I bought that one recently. They're really good. And I could easily have seen this picked up by a traditional publisher, but that author decided to self-publish, not even because of issues with not being able to get an agent or get traditionally published, but because they just didn't want to deal with the anxiety of the traditional publishing process. And that's another thing that I'm really considering. I think self-publishing has its own anxieties, but because in self-publishing, you have so much more control, those anxieties have the opportunity to kind of be, assuaged, I suppose, might be the right term. David says, damn, that's a good analogy. I'm guessing the spell slots analogy is the one you're talking about. But yeah, it is a good analogy. That's why I didn't make it up. I didn't use it. I read it on like a Tumblr post or something. But it is a pretty good one for like energy division, right? He says, I think we've all blown our higher level spell slots too early and not had enough juice for the spells we really wanted to cast. Strongly relates. The Freak is in says, good analogy. She should become a writer. She should. She really should. So outside of all of those thoughts, and sitting down and kind of puzzling out, trying to figure out, what's happening with my laying false trails and the crimes that aren't crimes, and editing that Act 1 and trying to push through to get all the way down to the end of Project Obia, at least this book. I think I always figured that this story would be a duology, two standalone books that happen one after the other. And I think the next one is probably going to be Project Durga or the Durga Project or something like that. But I really just need to get to the end of Project Obia. I'm trying to take it easy and acknowledge that I've got a lot on my plate with still unpacking and the move and all of these other things. I still have work. Normally I don't work on Sundays, or I try not to work on Sundays. But because so many deadlines are coming up on the 1st of January, I'm definitely going to be working on Sundays and Wednesdays and all the days that I don't normally, all the days I normally take off. I definitely don't have any days off between now and the 1st of January. I maybe get Christmas off, and I'm going to take a day or two just so that we can do our one-shot games. Brendan and I are hosting one-shot Dungeons and Dragons. I'm the DM, by the way, for those who are watching and who may or may not join and play with us for those two one-shots. We're going to do one before Christmas on the 19th and one after Christmas. I want to say the 27th. It's the 27th or the 29th. I can't remember. Brendan can tell you. But I'm going to be the DM. I'm going to be the DM for both of those. So you should join, right? Quite a few people are obviously joining virtually. So that's a thing. Nikki says, I wasn't invited. Nikki, that's because we only figured this out yesterday. So give us a bit. You'll get an invite. Trust me, you'll be fine. You and both of the kids. And the Freak is in says that she wants to play. Yeah, sure. I'm for that. One of the reasons we're splitting it up into at least 2 games on the 19th and then the other one on the 20-something is because we definitely have friends who can't make one day, but who can make the other day. So it's very likely that because there's so many people we want to play with and do like these Christmas D&D games with together, we're going to have another one. Oh, so Brendan says it's the 27th. So it's the 19th and the 27th are the 2 days. So yes, we are definitely going to make that happen. And I'll probably we'll probably find a third day where we can do some stuff. It will probably be after the 1st at this point, I think. But I definitely want to do this with as many of my friends as we can, because we have this great new setup, and we have, he also says the 19th is still super free, as most folks said that day is better for them. I don't know if he means that the day is free as in people can join us to play on the 19th, or people are playing on the 19th already because people, which day is, anyway, we'll figure this out and we'll reach out to talk to you all and set up who's going to join virtually and who is able to join in person, though we are keeping in-person numbers for obvious reasons very, 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 very low because of pandemics. And I think, folks, lovely people, I think that is it for me today. I've talked to you about my manuscript. You know where I'm at. You know what my brain is tumbling over and like grinding through. If you have any questions for me, or if you have any suggestions for me, if you'd like to read Act 1 so far and help me figure out what false trails to lay, tell me. And I would love to share this with you and get your ideas so that I can finish this manuscript. I want to finish this manuscript like now. So please tell me, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for being here and for listening. Your presence and your support, I really cannot describe how amazing and incredible it is to have you every single time I sit down on Sunday, even when it's just for me to tell you I had no spoons this week and I didn't do any writing. It's really incredible to have all of you supporting me in this, especially because most of you haven't even read this book yet. Like, you don't even know if it's good. You don't even know if like I've just written crap. But I really, really appreciate all of you here listening to me ramble for like an hour every Sunday. So thank you. The Freak is in says she's up for reading Act 1 and does she want me to cook? Yes, I want you to cook. The answer is always yes. Food, you bringing me food? Yes, always yes. All right. Anyway, thanks so much. I love you all, and I will talk to you next Sunday at the same time. Bye.